study of explorers, and our focus is on the French explorers. We've already done Portugal, and of course we know that Portugal dealt with exploration around Africa and with Brazil. Then we looked at the Spanish. The Spanish had a major claim in the Americas, from the area of Florida to the southwestern part of the United States, all the way through Mexico, all the way to the southern tip of Tierra del Fuego in South America. So they had a major claim. But while they were exploring also, the French were exploring. We'll talk tomorrow about the English, but today we're doing the French. Our first French explorer that we're looking at, his name is Giovanni da Verrazzano. Verrazzano. Now, Verrazzano, he is going to explore from the coastal regions of the Carolinas, North South Carolina today, all the way to Maine. So he's doing the East Coast. Okay. So he's exploring. One of the key things that I want you to know, though, with Verrazzano is his accounts of the harbor at New York. Now, of course, New York wasn't established at that point. But he's going through and he's making some accounts of this great place to where you see where the Hudson River converges with the Atlantic Ocean. You've got this great harbor. In geography, we talk about site and situation. The site of New York City eventually, when New York City is established, or New Amsterdam, the site is amazing. The location of the harbor is great. It's a deep sea inlet. Okay. Its proximity on the coast is amazing. And of course, we'll see that because of a great site and then the situation of where it's located, we'll see that great cities will grow. And we can find those locations across the globe also, where great cities would thrive and flourish just because of its geography, where it's located. But he has those particular accounts, and that's Verrazzano. Our next person that we want to look at is Jacques Cartier. Okay. Not just the jeweler, right? Cartier. But Jacques Cartier, he is going to explore the St. Lawrence River. Have you ever heard of the St. Lawrence River? Where's that at?
It leads to the Great Lakes.
Leads to the Great Lakes. It's in Canada, present-day Canada. But the St. Lawrence River is going to connect the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes. Now, of course, they're going to connect with Great Lakes and things like that eventually because of people are going to create dams and they're going to dredge out the rivers and that sort of stuff that they can utilize the river system more thoroughly in modern times. But that was kind of the initial. He sails back and forth up through there, and everything seems to be going great. Now, I will say that there are some accounts of the French encountering some Indians there that they didn't particularly get along with. But for most accounts, here's something different. The French got along extremely well with Indians. The Indians viewed them as basically people who were giving them treasures. What did the Spanish do with the Indians? What? They enslaved them. They tried to convert them to Christianity. If you didn't convert, what happened? You might have gotten killed. Your life expectancy probably was not great. The French really weren't so interested. Yes, they converted some Indians to Christianity. Yes, they sent Jesuit missionaries to convert, but it wasn't their main thing. Their main thing was wealth. They're taking wealth back from the New World to France. Now the Spanish, remember the Spanish wanted gold and treasures and things like that to take back. The French probably would have enjoyed those, but they found something else that was very lucrative, something that they could make money on. And it was furs, fur trading, pelts. And they found that by trading with the Indians, the Indians could do half the work. They could do the trapping. We're going to trade with them. We're going to give them goods. We're going to give them things. And they're going to want to trade with us. And then occasionally we married them. Okay. The French didn't send large populations of people though over. They didn't send like, colonists per se. Yes, some did come. Yes, they did establish some colonies, some major settlements, but it wasn't to the grand scale that you would imagine. The English are going to master that, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. Our next individual that we're going to look at, his name is Samuel de Champlain. Samuel de Champlain, he's going to be known as the father of New France. See, New France was the area at first named that for the New World, the French possessions in the New World. We'll eventually see that New France will be divided into 3 regions. You have Canada, you have New France, which is in the middle. That's kind of the areas between the Appalachian Mountains and the Mississippi River. And then we have Louisiana. And Louisiana will be from the Gulf of Mexico, Louisiana, all the way up through whatever the tributaries were from the Mississippi. So it went all the way as far as Montana. Okay, that region. The northern part, all the way down. Huge area. And that's going to be their claim. But Samuel de Champlain, he is going to be exploring, like say, upstate New York, Canada, the area known as Quebec. But he's going to help establish the city of Quebec. And that's going to be one of the first settlements. Of course, we talked about the first settlement for the Spanish. Remember what that was? St. Augustine. Okay, St. Augustine. The first settlement for the French is Quebec. And actually, if you want to know the history of it, Quebec was before St. Augustine. St. Augustine was set up to kind of offset the French. I'm sorry, the Spanish. Yeah, French. I'll get it right eventually. I mentioned to you a minute ago about explorers. How the explorers were here to trade. That they are going to trade for pelts. They're going to create trading posts. What was Arkansas's oldest trading post? What? Arkansas Post. Okay. Trading post. These individuals who were the frontiersmen, these mountain men, who lived with the Indians, who lived in the deep part of the woods, who came back with their pelts and traded back and forth. In French, they were called coureurs de bois, which means runners of the woods. So these runners of the woods would interact with Indian populations. Was that interaction anywhere similar to the Spanish? The French might have treated the Indians better, which there are some issues that we'll talk about at the end. But one of the things that happened...
I need to get something for my sister.
Okay, you're interrupting.
I'm sorry.
Come in. One of the things that that they're going to do a little differently is their interaction with Indians. Okay, they're interacting, they're treating them a little differently. But does that prevent them from getting diseases? Does the French give diseases to the Indians like the Indians got from the Spanish? It's the same. The French, because of their interaction with the native population, a lot of native population will die from those diseases just the same. Of course, they didn't realize what was happening, but that was it. Another individual is going to try to prevent, with his particular founding of Detroit, he's going to try to prevent the English from coming in and getting more of a stronghold. And that's Antoine Cadillac. So Antoine Cadillac is going to establish Detroit. And Detroit, if you know where Detroit is, Detroit's on a river that connects Great Lakes together. Okay, it's a strategic point that would be influential for them to have some sort of a fort. Okay, so they established Detroit. Our last Frenchman that I want you to know is Robert de La Salle. La Salle, he is going to be exploring around the Great Lakes, but he is an individual who sails down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. In the process of sailing down to the Gulf of Mexico, he claims that whole area for France. He calls it Louisiana, named after Louis XIV. Later on, we'll see a settlement that would be started there that's very lucrative for the French. It's called New Orleans. New Orleans is on the Mississippi River. If you're going to take goods from the Gulf of Mexico up the Mississippi River, you have to pass through New Orleans. If you're going to take goods from, say, the Ohio River Valley, maybe Arkansas River, Mississippi River, some of those others, and travel down the Mississippi, if you want to take your goods out through the Gulf of Mexico, you have to travel through New Orleans. Of course, we will see in our American history where we try to purchase New Orleans because we know that we're having to pay taxes through there. We will see that it will go back and forth between possessions of the French owning, then the Spanish, then back to the French. So, you know, that's a problem, who we're going to pay and how we're going to negotiate our transportation of goods. And then when we go buy New Orleans, they sell us all of Louisiana. But it was such a good deal. But we'll get into that later on too. Robert de La Salle. First, remember the goals of the French were to establish trading posts and claim the region for France. They're also going to recruit Indians for the trade industry. Yes, they convert a few of them to Catholicism. That's not their main goal. What's the outcome? If I were to ask you the question, like I do up here, how does the French colonization impact the native population in the New World? Is it any better? Nod. Any better? Yeah, probably better for the Indians that survived, you know, diseases, that sort of stuff. Their treatment is better. They learn a lot of customs actually from the French. Several learn, you know, to speak French. There's several, you know, as colonies would be established or settlements established, you're going to find a lot more French names that are here. One thing that's different, one thing that the Spanish didn't do, that's kind of interesting, that actually impacts, you know, native populations, you know, now some of the same issues, same problems. It's called alcoholism. Believe it or not, you know, when they're trading for these furs, one of the things that they trade with them is alcohol. You know, you bring me so many furs, I give you so much alcohol. And then they liked it. Of course, in Native American culture today, one of the biggest problems that they have on reservations is alcoholism. Did as many people die because of weaponry? Things like that? No. Later on, we'll see where we have things like the French and Indian War. In the French and Indian War, remember, it's the French and the Indians versus the British, a couple of Indians. Okay. Now I'm going to show you a video. The video is a different perspective.